I'm sorry. I really, genuinely am. You see, I've spent the better part of the last year, maybe two, panning Terraforming Mars. Saying that it wasn't the right game for me, that it was ugly and too hard to get to the table, and didn't integrate the mechanics and thematics as much as I wanted it to. I've commented time and time again on how ugly I find some of these cards, and how the components and the production quality of the game really should be higher. And I'm sorry, because I have been entirely and essentially wrong. I just got done with a 3-player gameplay of Terraforming Mars. We are going to be posting it on the channel in the next week or so. Hit the subscribe button, because I have to say, if you like this game, you're not going to want to miss the gameplay. It was a nail-biter down to the finish line, with all three of us playing alternative strategies, and Alex and I went head-to-head. And don't worry, I have changed things on the board here so that you can't tell who won, because it comes down to the very end. And all of us were genuinely blown away. This game, I have underestimated and underwrote Terraforming Mars time and time again. And I really, genuinely have to admit that I've been wrong. This game is one of the most fantastic, thematic, and mechanically solid games I've ever played. And if you're like me, and you've written this game off because of the poor production quality or the ugly cards or the bad artwork, you should take a moment to take a break, take a pause, and take a closer look at exactly what Terraforming Mars is offering. In this video, I want to have a conversation with you about where I've found and redeemed this game in my eyes, the stuff that I overlooked when I first initially got into the hobby, and why I have to sit here ashamed and in awe of a title that I should have played sooner. I don't know that there's many titles that can hold a glass of water up to this classic, right? So let's dive into it. I always wrote off Terraforming Mars because I'm a thematic player, right? I want to have an experience on the gaming table. I want to feel like I'm really taking control of the environment I'm playing in. And let me go ahead and paint the caveat that we have always and consistently played with the drafting rules variant, which I think should be the official approved way to play, and the bonus expansion, which is going to be the Prelude, which makes the game go a little bit quicker and sets you up with initial starting resources. I think those two things are essential to experiencing the game, and I don't know where my experience would be if I hadn't been taught to play the right way or the best, most accessible way. But with that in mind, I underwrote this game because I always thought that it wasn't thematic. I thought that it was a mechanics-driven game, a classic Euro game, right? With card play that started building a tableau, generating resources, allowing you to terraform Mars. If you're not familiar with what Terraforming Mars is, I'll give you a 60-second spiel on it. If you're playing with a drafting variant, then at the start of every turn, you're going to be taking a cycle and a selection of cards. You have to make a determination of what cards you're going to keep in your hand and what cards you're going to keep in your hand and not discard. So everyone's going to be able to choose what cards they want to hold on to, and then they have to pay to keep those cards instead of just handing them back into the discard pile. That makes the crux of the game so tense and so rewarding. You'll be paying to keep cards that you want to play, using your precious resources. As you start playing the game, you'll be doing or aiming for 3 objectives: to terraform Mars, raising the heat level all the way up to the top, the oxygen all the way up to where life can exist, and the water all the way to where oceans have formed on the surface. Those 3 conditions will trigger endgame. And it's going to come down to the person who has the most victory points. Well, how do you score victory points? Well, it's going to be resource management through tableau building. These cards that you're drafting have a whole series of effects. In-game actions that you could take, immediate effects that give you big, powerful bonuses, and consistent ongoing effects that either score you victory points or raise your production level on your board. After everyone has passed every turn or round, you'll start generating your resources, getting more money, steel, production, titanium, heat, that you then convert into things that transfer energy into Mars. Again, raising one of those 3 dials and driving or pushing endgame. And when I first looked at this game, I thought it wasn't thematic at all. I thought it was a pile of cards, interesting mechanics, and good tableau building and resource management, but the theme was lacking. And then I played it once, twice, and 3 times now, I believe. I'm not well versed in the game, but every experience I've had has been amazing. In the very first game I played, I still remember the fact that I went straight forest and I terraformed Mars more effectively than anyone else, placing down almost every single green forest tile available in the game, scoring a whole plethora of points, and of course having nature cards that allowed me to start building an ecosystem. In the gameplay we just played, I won't spoil anything because you should really watch it, but I focused on mining. The faction that I got was Saturn, and I had mining operations and power generators at the very beginning, and I played my whole game driving that engine, right? Tearing up the ground, ripping resources out of it, and converting by force and sheer willpower, and sometimes nuclear bombs, the planet into a habitable zone. Of course, pulling as much wealth and economy out of the soil of Mars as I could in the process. And it was fun. And it was mechanically solid, but it was also thematically rich, right? The puzzle of this game is so immensely rewarding. You're slowly getting your own engine up and running, and there are so many different paths to victory that it is remarkable the way that you can re-experience this game in different ways. Do you focus on cities or civilizations, big economic engines where you have donors and backers funding your research? Do you focus on science pathways or building habitable zones? Do you focus on nature, greenery, resources, shrubbery, and life as a engineer or biologist that's able to score victory points based off of how many different organisms you've transposed onto the soil? Or like me, do you focus on mining, on ripping up the ground, on stealing the resources from the land? Every single piece of artwork and card in this game has its own flavor and charm. Every single one has a little bit of flavor text down in the bottom, and after only 3 games, I have become nostalgic for the clip art and the bad art and the good art that's spread throughout this title, to the point where if they were going to reoffer or reissue a series of this, I don't really want them to change this. I'm wrong, and I have been wrong on the fact that I think this game is ugly. It isn't. It's really good. It feels like you're a company, all right? With PowerPoint presentations and graphs and charts and a board of directors that require you to be doing good, to be playing efficiently. And every card has its own little bit of flavor text. Corporate stronghold, a city exclusively devoted to your corporation. Energy tapping, they need it, but we need it more. Nuclear zone, detonating obsolete nuclear weapons from Earth is an efficient method for raising the temperature. Castile penal mines. You always wanted to be a warden, didn't you? Beam from a thermoid asteroid. Nuclear energy is safe, especially when located on a remote asteroid rich in radioactive elements. They have built piles and piles of theme into this title. And the production quality could be better. I won't advocate on that. I think everyone agrees. But here's the thing. The game's so good that it's worth investing in the solutions that the community has created. On player trays that allow you to keep everything organized, on metal resource cubes that make the experience of playing and holding resources that much better, on 3D components to build out the map and the experience. There's a lot here. There's a lot of ways to improve the game. And not only that, but there's expansion upon expansion that integrate and improve and change, and I cannot wait to dive into them. This is, and is going to be, one of our most played and one of my favorite games right now. And I cannot believe how much I panned it and how greatly I underwrote it. I love the mechanics of Terraforming Mars. Really, genuinely. The resource management and tableau building is so incredibly rewarding, but the drafting in this game is one of the best drafting experiences in any game I've ever played, and partially that comes down to the fact that there's so many cards to explore, so many pathways, so many things that are good for you and good for your opponents that you're handing out back and forth. Yeah. That's all this video is about, really. For those of you that have been upset by my stance on Terraforming Mars, I'm sorry, I was wrong. We have a gameplay coming that's fantastic, and I plan on doing more and more on this classic title. And for those of you that have never played, that like me echo the sentiment, or maybe have tried it, but had a miserable first gameplay or experience, add in drafting, add in the Prelude expansion, and learn the rules. Or play with someone that knows the rules well enough to hold your hand and walk you through the experience. And make sure you have upgraded components, if at all possible, for your next game. But don't make the mistake I made. Don't underwrite just how good this title is. There's some titles out there that I still don't understand. But Terraforming Mars is no longer one of them. So, now I just have to decide if, when, and how it changes my top 10. Yeah, that'll be conversation in the future. Whatever the case, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some games. And if you're excited about a gameplay with Board Game Co. of this title, make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment down below. What expansion should we bring to the channel next? Whatever the case, we'll see you next time. Thank you.